Hello Mill Creek community, my name is Tom Cutter. I'm in charge of the audio, video, tech, and film program here at Mill Creek High School. Welcome back to our second broadcast, our second podcast. Today we got a very important podcast for you about college. I have two special guests with me today. I have Sean Millivat and Miss McGuire from the counseling office. Sean, why don't you start off by introducing yourself?
All right, I'm Sean, and I'm just here to kind of be the body of students and their voice and try to bring a student perspective to the conversation and hopefully make it more relatable for the kids and maybe they can get something out of the podcast.
Thank you, Sean. And then Miss McGuire, why don't you tell us what your role is here at the high school?
Well, I'm a counselor here at Mill Creek, so part of our job is to address students' social needs, career needs, and academic needs. And under that social and career umbrella also falls the idea of what you're going to do after high school, post-secondary plan. So that would be career and college or military to help guide students and figure out their next step.
Okay. So, Miss McGuire, let's start off just by talking about the idea of people when they leave Mill Creek High School. Does everyone have to go to college? Because a lot of times we really push it. But what is your opinion? Does everyone have to go to college to be successful?
No, not at all. My opinion is that college is a nice place to go to finish your education, or from another angle, maybe even begin your actual education, as in laying the groundwork with your first bachelor's degree. It's an option to launch you into adulthood, but it's by no means the finite answer to post-secondary planning. You'll hear it over and over again. Families and kids just say, I don't want to go to college. I'm done with this. I want to go to work. I'm done with essays or math or what have you. So there's so many good options right now, especially right now for students who want to go to a technical college perhaps and learn a trade, or even if you didn't want to go to a technical college, just to become an apprentice in an industry like in the plumbing industry or the electrical industry or the construction industry. And we in our office have a ton of those options that we can discuss with kids, but the answer is no, college is not mandatory.
Okay, awesome. So I guess we should probably start off with, when do students need to start preparing for college? Mm-hmm. So even as a freshman in high school, how does a freshman at Mill Creek start the journey of preparing for college?
Well, okay, so to me that's a two-pronged answer. One is I would have to say that for me, as a counselor and a parent, I would always want every student to have options at the end of their journey. Meaning that I would prefer that every student pretend as if they were going to go to college, and if at the end of their journey they choose not to, that's fine, but the choice is there for them. So with that being said, as a ninth grader, I think it's important to meet with your counselor to discuss a four-year plan, particularly if you are taking advanced level courses. A lot of times our students don't have those meetings as ninth graders with their counselor, and they find themselves by the time they're juniors and seniors being pushed into upper level classes that they're really not prepared for. Mm-hmm. So to meet with a counselor ahead of time and to plan for your courses in high school, I think that's important. But preparing in high school would look like, yes, you need to go ahead and take 2 foreign languages, okay, because that's required for most college entrance into most colleges. You need to go ahead and remember that every class counts, every grade counts. I mean, even your ninth grade year. And so many students come into our office by the time they're juniors and seniors and go, oh, I wish I could redo freshman year, because there's so many other factors at play your freshman year. You just transitioned from middle school to the biggest school in the state. You're changing everything. Sometimes friend groups change. You're changing physically. There's a lot going on when you're 14 and 15. So it's easy for students to dip. Right. When they get here, they'll have that little ninth grade dip, and imagine like a hockey stick. Like the hockey stick goes down and then it goes up. Yeah. That's really normal. But it's the rebound that's super important. And the most successful kids with the most choices at the end of it don't even have that beginning. Yeah. They just go straight up. Yeah.
Sean, I want to ask you, you're a junior this year, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so freshman year, you came in, Mill Creek was probably a big and intimidating place, I assume. Yeah. But were you thinking about college at all your freshman year?
I was thinking about, I wasn't really thinking about exactly like which colleges I wanted to go to or specifics, but I was thinking about my transcript and what I was doing in high school to have, like she said, that option to go to college. And I know like in 8th grade I took biology, and so my first period was at Mill Creek, so I was kind of getting used to the school and the environment. And so I knew that I had to take it seriously And I think even still I had that dip where I wasn't maybe like studying as much as I am now or trying as hard. You know, I still wanted good grades and I knew it was important, but not as much as now and next year.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know, I mean, I had Sean as a sophomore in video class, and he's always been pretty dedicated to just doing a great job and keeping track of his grades. But I've met so many people who did exactly like you're talking about. The freshman year, they really just fell off the wagon.
Yeah.
They were so concerned about fitting in, more concerned about their friends than being successful in school. And I have seniors who are willing to go back and speak to freshman classes and say, hey, I messed up my senior year, or my freshman year. Don't make the mistake that I and so many of my friends made. And even then, when seniors do have the opportunity to share that with freshmen, I've seen a lot of the freshmen not take it seriously.
They don't get it.
So many people is the story that they're not taking the freshman year seriously, and it comes back to bite them at the end of their high school career with a low GPA when they're trying to get into these schools that they want to get into. So let's move on though to like sophomore year. So hopefully freshmen have kept a good GPA and they're starting to get into some difficult courses and transitioning from 8th grade to 9th grade. But like sophomores, what do they need to be doing, Ms. McGuire?
Well, I'm sorry to be a broken record, but you gotta continue to apply even pressure. I liken it to riding in a car. Like if you've ever driven a car, your foot should be applied to the gas on an even level of pressure. So otherwise you're jerking constantly. So the level of pressure that you should put on yourself should remain constant all 4 years. You should try to develop good study habits. Try to think about time management because you're leaving behind that kind of thoughtless youth and having to be more purposeful and intentional in how you plan your day. So to think of, if I'm free from school from 3 in the afternoon till 9 at night, I have 6 hours. What am I going to do with those 6 hours? And to intentionally parse out a time for schoolwork, to continue to stay on top of it, don't fall behind, learn how to advocate for yourself. Goodness, reach out to the teachers. Learn the chain of command at the school. And if you run into trouble, don't just, I'm done, it's over. Ask the questions, seek your counselor's help, seek your parents' help, seek somebody's help, the teacher. You know, that would be 10th grade year. You just got to remain consistent.
Yeah, okay. Sean, you're a junior now, so tell me, freshman, sophomore now as a junior, how has school been for you? How has it progressed? Like what's been the hardest year for you? Kind of tell me about your experience.
I would say the hardest year for me is this year because I'd say freshman and sophomore year, I was still in that mindset where school is just school. I just go here and I do my thing. I go to school. But this year I've kind of just, joining extracurriculars. That's a thing that I really wasn't even thinking about freshman year, is that you have to be involved in not only academics, but also clubs and things like that. And so it's been stressful because I'm also taking harder classes and everything, but it's nice because I know that it's going to pay off and I know that it'll look good on my transcript and things like that. So overall, I think this year is the most rigorous and senior year would probably be pretty equal. And so, I mean, as long as I stay on top of everything, I should be all right.
Okay. Sean's also my president of SkillsUSA this year.
Oh, great.
And I've seen a huge improvement because when he became president in the fall, he told me, he was like, I'm concerned about my AP classes. I know it's going to be really difficult, but I'm going to try to manage being president of Skills and handling some of these AP classes. And at first I'd have to kind of stay on him like, hey, these are the things that we need to be doing, and I want you to start taking on some of these things so I don't have to remind you. And now he's letting me know what's next, when we need to have our next meetings and getting the t-shirts ordered, all these types of things. And so Sean, you've done a great job of taking these large tasks that you're having to do and breaking them down into the manageable components. And I see that as something that students do struggle with, is that they take something like, I got to get into college, which seems overwhelming and a huge idea, and they have a difficult time breaking down that big task into smaller, manageable components. For instance, one thing that the students need to be doing is preparing for a standardized test, ACT, SAT. They're trying to figure out which one to take. So Ms. McGuire, as a junior, well, should they be thinking about this as sophomores or juniors? What's your take on that for a standardized test?
Yeah, for standardized testing, college admissions testing, all sophomores are automatically led to take the PSAT here at Mill Creek. It's a nice thing that the state does. They pay for all sophomores to take it. So that's a good litmus test for the kids to just have exposure to the way the test is set up. A lot of sophomores don't take it very seriously. They'll Christmas tree it or just not apply themselves. It's a really good opportunity that often goes to waste. However, to answer your question, we in the counseling office suggest that the students are gearing up to take the SAT by the second semester of their junior year, at the latest. Oftentimes kids will go ahead and take it in the beginning of their junior year. To me, that's fine if money is no object and you can pay the $50 fee for each time you take the test. However, for a lot of students, they're still in the middle of learning the content that's on the test, so you're not going to get the optimal result by taking it while you're in the middle of the learning curve. So we suggest that you take it in the latter part of your junior year. SAT or ACT, the colleges will accept either one of them. The ACT has a science section, the SAT does not. So that's a big difference. If you're strong in science, you might really shine in the ACT. Colleges in Georgia do something called super scoring, which means, for example, if you took the test 3 separate times, you send your scores all 3 times to the schools you're trying to get into, and those schools will cherry pick your scores for you to take your best academic representation. Like, he did better on math here, reading on this 3rd time, and math here, and they'll admit you based on your super score. And every time you submit a score, it reactivates your application at that college, so they reassess everything about you.
Okay, that's awesome. Sean, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Have you taken one of these standardized tests yet?
So the PSAT in sophomore year, I wasn't able to take it because I had like family matters and I wasn't in town to take it. So I didn't want to take the SAT before I took the PSAT. So I took the PSAT last semester, and I did pretty well. And now I'm signed up to take the SAT in March, and then I might sign up to do it again afterwards, depending. We'll see. But I want to try and study. I want to study for it. Like I've heard people say, Khan Academy is like a really popular resource and things like that. So I want to be prepared for it because I didn't study a whole lot for the PSAT, but it's a benchmark, and I feel like I can improve on my score for that. But also, Ms. Breyer, I had a question. So, how do you feel about kids taking the SAT and those standardized tests multiple times, like going on 3 or 4 times? Because I've heard both perspectives, like you can take it as many times as you want and get that high score, but I've also heard people say you don't want to test into a school that you can't compete in.
Okay. I feel that students can take it as many times as they want, and I don't personally feel that how you do or how well you do on the score is any indication of your successability at the collegiate level for whatever school that you're trying to get into. Sometimes students will take and retake and again these tests because they're also trying to achieve the mandatory score to receive the Zell-Miller Scholarship. So you have to get a 1200 in one sitting. They will not super score that. 1200 on the SAT or 26 on the ACT. So sometimes students will repetitively do that. Now statistics have shown that scores don't make big leaps after the 3rd time. So it stands to reason if you're not seeing great leaps in your scores, only 5 or 10 points, you might have maxed out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
So Taylor works on our crew. Could you go ahead and display those times and dates of the ACT and SAT as we talk about more about preparation? So Sean mentioned Khan Academy. What are some other great resources for kids to prepare for these tests for them coming up?
Okay, so Khan Academy is partnered with the College Board, and the College Board is the administrator of the SAT or the PSAT. So that is a great free resource for SAT test prep, okay? I like it because it's socioeconomically fair, because not every student and their family has $350 or $400 to throw at a test prep facility like a Cornerstone Academy. If you have that, then Cornerstone is a great resource for kids here at Mill Creek. Oftentimes kids will go there. Then you can also move on to the other tutoring centers like the Kumons or the Total Learning Centers. Those are really tucked in every nook and cranny, and you can just Google SAT test prep courses and pay the money and go to one of those things. And oftentimes, if you're trying desperately to move your score by big amounts, like I need a 100-point increase or a 3 or 4 point increase on the ACT, those places might be worth the money.
Okay. Yeah. So juniors need to be taking these standardized tests. We want them to go in prepared, as they take those. And by the way, I think it's just worth mentioning that Mill Creek as a school does get ranked in terms of how well people do the first time taking the test. So we do want students to prepare as much as they can before they take it that first time. But when they take it as a junior and they're happy with their score as a student, what do they have to do for college next? Like leaving junior year, going into senior year, tell us what else needs to be happening.
Okay, great question. So once you get the scores you want, it can be the first time you take it or the third, whatever. The next progression would be, we recommend that you start visiting colleges that you feel like might be a good fit. Maybe you have some that you would consider a stretch school. For example, if you have a 3.7 or a 3.8 GPA, going to Georgia might be a bit of a stretch, but you could still get in there. So go ahead and visit that school. Also do your research to find out the schools that are a really good fit for you, right in your sweet spot. And then a couple of the safe bets, like the kind of open admission schools, like perhaps a Georgia Gwinnett or a University of North Georgia Gainesville campus. So the answer is, first you take the test, then you start to visit some schools. Typically in the first semester of a student's senior year, we're encouraging students to be applying to college. So you could conceivably be done with all of that by like Thanksgiving of your senior year. Now, there will be some of those students who are still really trying to make that last push for their GPA, and they need that first semester's grades of their senior year to hit their GPA. So that's fine, but know your deadlines, know your application deadlines, because you don't want to say, okay, it's February 25th and I'm going to apply to college, and you realize the deadline was February 1st or January 1st. Know your deadlines, okay? And the counselors will send you your mid-year grades to those schools so they can see your first semester of your senior year's impact on your GPA.
Okay. I know visiting colleges helped me out a ton when I did these campus visits. I kind of got an idea of whether big school versus small school was going to be better for me. I visited a college that had like 2,000 students, and so it was literally smaller than Mill Creek High School. Right. And then I visited schools that had like 20,000 plus students. And for me, I kind of like the idea of going to a bigger college. It worked out well for me. I think it's an individual preference, and I think that people will benefit greatly from just going on these visits. And I also, when I went on my first visit, I didn't have anything to compare it with, and so I thought I was really interested in it.
Absolutely.
But by like the fifth visit, I threw it out, and I could really got a pretty good sense of the colleges that were going to work for me. But Sean, have you visited any colleges yet? And what's your thoughts on leaving junior year, going into senior year, and what you're going to be doing?
Well, I haven't visited any colleges yet, but I do plan on it. And I'm still trying to decide exactly what the best fit is for me, because I do, like most kids, I would want to go to UGA or Georgia Tech, but I also am trying to cross-reference like what I would be interested in majoring in and what their programs are. Like if I wanted to do maybe something that Georgia Tech doesn't have, then really it wouldn't, even though it's a prestigious, it's a nice university, I wouldn't want to go there if it doesn't support what I want to do. But going into senior year, I do want to visit more colleges, and then I still need to do like more research, more prepare on what I want to do.
Yeah, and it's really a tough thing, I think, for young people, because they're trying to figure out what it is that they want to do and what they're good at. So in the counseling office, I'm sure you talk with kids about this all the time. Maybe they know exactly what they want to do, but I think it's probably most often the case that they're still trying to figure it out. So talk to me, how do you advise students that are trying to figure out what they should major in to try to make those decisions on where to visit and what college to apply to?
Well, we do a little bit of questioning, like what you mentioned. Of course, in junior year, we have a junior meeting we invite all juniors and their families to come and spend 30, 45 minutes, an hour with us to go over this timeline of things. And we have in our catalog that we give to all the students a list of questions that they should ask themselves. What's important to me? City, country, suburban, big, small. Do I care about D1, rah-rah, go football, or not? Do I just want a nice small place that I feel safe? Do they have the programs I'm interested in? So all of that being said, and you've visited some schools, we just advise them to try to be true to yourself, not follow a boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend. Don't go because you like a sports team. But also, as far as trying to pick a major, I've had students, my own son included, who went into a bit of a panic because he was a sophomore in college, and he said, everyone knows what they want to do. Everyone's picked, they're all talking about all this. I have no clue what I'm going to do. He freaked out. So what I told him was, son, you're not picking a life, you're just picking a major. If you ask 100 adults if they're working in a career that has anything to do with their college major, probably more than 50% of them will say no. So I like to pose college as a platform. It's a great platform from which to leap into the next phase of your life. And it's kind of important for a lot of careers. It's not mandatory for everyone, but you can't even join the Peace Corps anymore without a bachelor's degree in something. So I would urge a kid to first, if you know something that speaks to your soul and you feel like you can make a living at that, try to do that. The next thing down would be, even if you don't feel like you can make a career at it, choose something that speaks to your soul. If you like psychology, major in psychology. You'll figure it out, even if you're not a psychologist, right?
Yeah.
Or teaching psychology, or philosophy, or I don't care, I told my own son, major in health and PE. He loves outdoors and all that. Anyway, I think that going to college and not knowing is an act of kind of faith. You kind of have to do that thing where you keep going up the staircase even though you can't see the top of the staircase. You move forward in trust that you're open to receiving a lot of guidance and information from the college and the people in your life. And one of those things is going to strike at you and snag at you. But you have to be there to receive the information. And being on the college campus puts you in a position poised to receive information that might guide you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, I tell my story in that I thought I was going to this university. I thought I was going to major in this, and none of those things turned out to be true. But, I went to a college that was similar, right? And I majored in something similar. But so I tell students, be shooting for something. Have an aim, have something you're shooting for. And most likely, just as you said, it very well could change, but it's probably not going to be completely different than what you were already kind of aiming at or going for. But I think aiming for something is a whole lot better than having nothing to aim for and really not having any direction.
Right.
So
even if you just said, I'm aiming for a college degree.
Right.
If it's too much pressure to name a major, to name a career, just choose the degree.
Yeah.
And the rest will show up for you. You keep moving forward, and at the same time being open to different experiences. I did much like you did, which is I went off to a small college and thought I'm going to transfer into Georgia, and I never did because I fell in love with my small college, and I graduated from there. My major was mass communications, journalism. I never worked a day in that major. I went straight into corporate sales, and then, in my 40s, I decided this was what I wanted to do, and I went back and got my master's. So you're never done. It's a decision that you make. You're only done when you say you're done.
Right. Yeah. So let's kind of transition a little bit, because we're talking about different things that students need to be doing to prepare for college. But there is, I think, parental pressure is real. I hear it all the time.
Yes.
Parents love their children, and they have a lot of say in what they think is best for their child, and I understand that. And I see it out of love. But some of these kids are really struggling with parental pressure, and it's sometimes overwhelming. So, Sean, how much pressure do you feel when it comes to college and preparing? And I'm not trying to pick on your parents or anything like that, but how is that in terms of pressure and stress?
Well, it's not too stressful for me because for my parents, my mother didn't graduate high school, so they don't have as many expectations for me. It's mostly they just let me do my thing, and they know that I will try to pursue a higher education. They know that I want the best for myself, and they want the best for me, and so it's pretty mutual push for that. And a lot of the expectations I have a lot of the expectations on me are just from myself, and so it's not too stressful for me. But I do see it. It's definitely real, and a lot of people, a lot of students, It varies how it affects them, because some students, they get that pressure and they're doing really well and their parents are supporting them and they're super involved with school, and other students, it might break them down because they are struggling and they can't meet what their parents want them to. And so I think that really students just have to do it for themselves in a way, because a lot of your parents wanting something for you isn't a prerequisite for you to get that, and that pressure, you can do it for yourself.
Okay. And Ms. McGuire, I'm sure that you hear this a lot in the counseling office, students coming to you and they're just overwhelmed with the stress and anxiety of getting into this college, with sometimes parents playing that role of putting the pressure on. So what do you see, and how do you advise students that are going through this?
Well, that's really tricky because I need to support the student without alienating the parent. And I certainly don't want the student to go home and say, well, my counselor said, and it be complete, I don't want to ever, antagonize anybody. So when a student comes to me and they're receiving stress from the parents that they feel like they can't live up to, I try to just support them in a way that says, your parents love you. They love you the best way they know how. Sometimes it might not feel like you want it to feel, but you have to trust that they want the best for you. And over time, as long as you are doing the best you can and communicating with them, hopefully you finding your own path that may look different than the path that they imagined for you will end up being okay. Oftentimes you only realize that in hindsight, so it can be a rocky road to try to make, because you have your theory, parents have the theory of who they think their kid is, but then there's the reality of who their kid actually is.
Right.
And if that doesn't match up, and the parents are not willing to accept that this kid isn't an AP kid, or it doesn't really care about going to Duke or Vandy or Georgia or Tech, if they're not willing to accept it, it can cause a lot of unnecessary misery. But I can't fix what's going on in the home, but I can try to talk to the student about how to process that and how to find his own way without absorbing too much of that pain,
Right. You mentioned communication and talking about it. I'm sure that is just a very important piece of this, is that you have to keep talking about it. Once someone shuts down, if a student shuts down and they're feeling all this pressure, but they're not communicating with their parents how they're feeling about it, I imagine that only leads to poor things, to bad things, when communication ceases.
Well, yes, but I must admit it, the communication must go two ways. You're right, when a student shuts down, that's not helpful, that's not a good sign for any relationship. I can easily see how it could happen though, because if the student doesn't feel heard and supported, then they don't talk anymore. They withdraw that argument because they're not going to win that argument. And why a student going to any particular college should become any particular argument from a parental point of view is a curious thing to me. But I understand parents have their expectations. But the parents need to listen to their kids too. And the whole theory versus reality thing is real. Listen to what if you try to force your student to go to a certain school because it was your alma mater, or you have this dream for your child, or even I had a student yesterday that was talking to me about their cultural norms for their particular culture, was very, very high expectations, going to Emory, Tech, Duke, Vandy, Harvard, and she's not that student, and she is suffering greatly because of the pressure from her family. Crying, anxiety, depression. It's very upsetting. Yeah. So I don't know. It's hard to advise a student without alienating the parents.
So I try to tell students, it's not always popular, but I try to tell students, like, getting into college and pursuing this next level of education is an important thing. But man, there is so much life after college.
Yes.
And so if you don't go to the college that you dreamed of going to, if you don't get admitted to that, your life is not over. No. There are many good places to go further your education. And then once you get that first job, it's like no one cares where you went to college anymore. They want to know about your work experience. And so whatever college you go to, do the best you can there, network with the people that are there. And once you get your first job, like, there's no looking back. It's like no one cares where you went to college. So I try to tell people, like, hey, you're making it probably a bigger deal than what it should be.
Exactly.
So I'm hoping that will help people ease their anxiety, sometimes depression, because it is very, very serious. People feel like it's the end of their life if they don't get into these specific colleges. So what are your thoughts on that?
I would say that it's hard as a student, because obviously y'all have lived your lives and you have that wisdom to look back on. But for us, it's almost the majority of our lives has been school. Like school, you go to school, you do school every day, you have homework. all that stuff. And so the end goal of that is usually is college. And so everyone kind of has their eyes set on that and don't really look past that. And me as well, like I'm still focused on college. I don't often think about really even what I'm going to do after college, you know, because it's just so much of what I do every day is school, which leads to college. So it's hard to get that perspective, but you're definitely right that there is a lot more afterwards. But I think it's tough to get that into students' heads.
Yeah.
So you're right, and that's a really good perspective. And it's interesting, you know, school up until you're 18, only to just go into 4 more years of school and possibly even more school after that. My advice to speak to that point right there would be, just don't stop. Don't stop because you doubt the end result. Nobody's life comes to them in a tightly little packaged bow, perfectly thought out. Life doesn't happen that way. It's messy and strange and stressful. But as long as you keep moving forward, so when you finish in high school and you get into college, dream school or not, I mean, Georgia has 20-something thousand kids that apply to it, 5,000 roughly get in, right? Tech, even fewer, you know, forget Stanford and Harvard, you know, 6 and 7% admit rate. So what about all those other kids? Are they losers? No. Are they lost? No. Are they still going to go on and have great lives? Absolutely. But the things that you can do to help yourself, even though you don't know the end result, is keep moving forward, keep doing your best. Because if you're doing your best, you have nothing to be sorry about, nothing to be ashamed of. When there's an opportunity that shows up in your life, instead of just automatically saying, nah, I don't like that kind of music, or I'm not interested in hearing that speaker, that's an opportunity for personal growth. And in college, this comes to you all the time. They'll have speakers, they'll have concerts, you'll get opportunities for jobs and little internships and if it's free, which a lot of this is going to be free, and it might only take an hour of your time, why would you not? What would you be doing instead? Like gaming or Snapchatting or YouTubing? When you could be enriching your life, and if you go to hear a speaker or even a band or just visit a new place, something in there might snag your heart and open up a new pathway for you to go, this is it. I think I want to be, you know, this now. And if you had been in your room saying no, I just encourage you, be the person that says, yeah, I'll try that. Don't quit saying no. Quit assuming that you're not going to like it, because if you've never done it, you really don't know. After you've done it a time or two, you go, that's not my bag. But say yes as often as possible, and that's where you network, that's where you grow, that's where you learn about yourself. So that's what I would say, is live your life in an expansive, open yes manner instead of a tightly closed up no. And remember that life does not come to you in a tightly little packaged box. You
need that reminder every day.
Every day. Say yes.
And what you're talking about right there, and needs to start at the high school level.
It does.
Needs to start now for these students, like getting involved. What I tell parents that have freshmen that are coming to the high school, my best piece of advice is get plugged into something. They got to find something to do.
Right.
You can't just be a student that comes here at 7 o'clock in the morning and leaves at 2:10 with nothing else. And so find extracurricular activity, find a sport to play, find some way to fit into the school and not just be a student that attends and leaves and goes home, because it's so important to have like your place in the school.
It really is.
And that's how you meet people and you meet friends and you find your passions, just like you were talking about. So what else have we missed in terms of preparation for college and tips for students?
One thing I would say also about the getting involved, if it's not at school, if for whatever reason, I mean, I feel like we have a plethora of options for students here, everything from anime to gaming clubs to equestrian to SkillsUSA, I mean, all manner of choices. But if for whatever reason none of this clicks with you, or maybe you're too scared or shy to put your effort in here, talk to somebody in the counseling office, talk to somebody at your church, talk to somebody in your neighborhood, because we have options in our counseling office for students to go work at vets' offices. There's things called the police explorers, the hospital explorers, the firefighters explorers. And I'm not saying, you're going to go be a cop. If you're interested in law or how the law interacts with its citizens, police explorers. One of my sons did that, and it was one of the best things he's ever done. We're so pleased that we found that program. If you are interested in medicine, you can do the same thing at a hospital. There are lots of other options if it's not at Mill Creek. But no, to answer your question again, what all have we talked about? I think we covered a really good timeline, but I think that the kids that I see, that they're either frustrated with themselves because they lagged as freshmen. Mm-hmm. They're frustrated with their parents for putting pressure on them that they're not ready to accept, or they're frustrated because they feel like they don't fit into the college template. And that seems to be the primary focus often. I want to encourage those kids, relax. There's a place for everybody. Yeah. Really good money out there for those kids too.
Right. So if you're a student or a parent and this all preparing for college is extremely overwhelming to you, please make an appointment with your student's counselor, or make an appointment with your counselor. Speak with them about what's going on. I think one of the biggest things is you can't freeze and just stop everything. You can't become so overwhelmed that you do nothing. And so please communicate that with your parents, with the counseling office, so we can keep moving forward, and so you can have a path that you feel good about and go on to bigger and better things. And so I appreciate y'all's input today on our talk. We will have kind of a part 2 of this discussion where we get into cost of college and scholarship opportunities. But we thank you so much for joining us today, and I think that's it. Have a good day.